Hi everyone, and welcome to my wall of sound here on the Rancho. I've had a lot of people have written me and asked me if this was a purchased shelving unit or whether this was a manufactured or whether I built it myself. And I want to discuss how you might build a custom shelf of your own for your living room. It doesn't necessarily have to be for vintage and notable audio equipment as I have here, but it is possible to make your own for about 30% of the price that you would pay for store units that probably aren't near the quality because they use pressboard and because they don't use any metal components to it. So I wanted to discuss this. And let me say first, everything that you see built here in the way of the shelving unit is in a playlist down below. Building the vintage wall of sound here. It shows the construction methods that I used, but I wanted to give an overview of what some of the goals were for this shelving unit because it turned out beautifully. It's very strong, it's very supportive. There's a lot of weight on here, and as a result I didn't want to have to worry about catastrophic failure of the flooring system. So underneath where we have the units here, on the nearest floor joist support, there are two jacks under there that are also giving additional support there just to be on the safe side. I don't know what the weight limitations are, but why risk it? These are heavy units. Some of these are 40, 50, even up to about 65 pounds. So this unit can definitely take it, but you have to make sure your floor underneath can be very supportive. The goal I wanted to have was to buy a unit that would go floor to ceiling that I could assemble to put my collection of vintage audio equipment on. The problem was I looked and looked. Many of them were glass. The construction did not look good. Chrome, it looked like it would rust out in a matter of maybe less than a year. So I was not thrilled with the materials of construction that they were using. So I decided to try to think of a way that I might adjust or put an adjustable shelf on here to help me fit my components and make them look good. There were a couple requirements in construction that are very important to discuss. Number one, this is our living room here too. So if someone wants to watch a movie or we sit in here and watch movies, one requirement is that we be able to use our television set and integrate that into the wall of sound, and that's number one, as well as the base unit that supports that. So that was the first thing. The second requirement is there's no such thing as standardization on stereo audio equipment, whether it's new or mod. I'm sure many of it is 19 inches for audio racks, but some of them is more than 19 inches. You can see this Pioneer 4-channel QX 949. It is a behemoth here. It's also wider than 19 inches. So I wanted to design a shelving unit that would also meet the requirement of having room on the shelves to be able to sit several units side by side in the center part. It was also important to be able to adjust these shelves up and down to accommodate the height of some of these units. If you can see up here on the top, we've got the Kenwood 9GX. This is a jumbo unit here. This thing not only is it the tallest unit that I have, it's the heaviest unit I have. It's probably the most valuable unit I have, and it's also really the widest unit I have. I had to be able to raise that shelf height above that to accommodate and get that to fit. I guess I could have done it down here if I had thought about placement a little more, but I wanted to put my row of vintage Fishers, the Fisher 500Cs, the Fisher 800Bs, and the 500C. I wanted to be able to get all that across here on one single shelf so people could admire the walnut cases and the look of these Fisher units. So it was kind of important to me to have them centered. So how do we get the adjustable feature? Well, the first thing that you should know is this unit is built from the floor up. We assembled the base units outside. I bought 8-foot pieces of threaded rod, 3/4 inch threaded rod, And I went and measured the ceiling height to make sure that these would fit in okay. Well, I had to lop about 1.5 inches off of each one of those threaded rods. I took them to the local machine shop, and for 20 bucks, the guy cut down all of the pieces I would need for the particular units to make a custom fabrication. Actually, these came in 6-foot sections, so I had to use coupling nuts on here to do a 6-foot section, and then to add on to have the other pieces of threaded rod, 6-foot pieces, cut down to the height I needed. I put these through a base of wood with the 2x4s on the perimeter of each base unit on this side and on this side. Not only did that get it off the ground and allow it to have a little more stability, it also allowed room for nuts to go on the bottom and a washer to go on the bottom of the feet to give some stability there and be able to hold the rods upright. So as you started adding shelves upward, it wouldn't tip over when it was being constructed. When we got each of the base units constructed, we did we set each one of them at the same initial height going up, figuring we could just adjust inside once we went to add the units. Then it came time, once we got the unit set here, and we got the unit set in place here, it was simply a matter of bridging those two units with composition board here for a long span across the top, and that worked out really super well. Now, these things weigh a lot, and if you're putting things on your shelves, you have to consider weight, and especially weight. When you have weight on shelving units, it's going to tend to bow the units down. So we needed to put braces underneath here, 2x2s, one in the front and one in the back there, and that keeps the shelf from bowing and keeps it straight there. So we were able, as we were adding shelves to the unit, when it came time to add the cross units here, we just started adding them in place. We would put a washer on top of the composition board here, the fiber board, then put a nut on, tighten it, put another washer on, put the center span on, put a washer on top, put a nut on top, and adjust that height where we wanted it, using a level going along to make sure that we were all level. When we got to the top, we had to be able to fit the top piece in on each side, one on that side, one on that side, and then be able to screw the nuts upward to press that top into the ceiling, that top assembly. The top assembly on each side looks like the bottom assembly, and once they were secured in place, we had basically finished the shelving unit, and I was able to put a fascia board across the front of it to give a little finish. You could paint it if you want. I kind of like the natural wood look here in the living room, so I'll bring it in close and I'll show you a few of the construction details, and then we'll wrap up the video. And I'll have links to the playlist where it shows how we constructed these. I think we did that last, I think early spring maybe. Okay, so let's get in here and take a closer look. Close to the bottom here, and you can see the 2x4 that actually runs across the bottom with the composition board cut and put on top of that. And it also, that 2x4 goes around the sides of that too, to give great support to the units that we sit on here. Once that was in place, underneath of there, underneath of in the 2x4s, one on each corner, I countersunked or put a depression within the 2x4 to allow a nut to tighten down and be pulled upward into the wood there, thereby securing it and keeping the metal off the ground and keeping it from scoring the floor. Then it was simply a matter of step by step, and I'll come up here, adding a nut to go up the threaded rod at the height that you want it to be, laying a level across here, and bringing the other side up and matching it on level, putting a washer and a nut on, tightening it down, and moving it up to the next level, and tightening that, because with audio systems we do get vibrations, and when the frequencies are hit. We didn't want these nuts vibrating and making noise, so we tightened them down. As you can see up here, these threaded rods were 6 feet in length, so we were able to use coupling nuts to add an additional length of threaded rod there. Just had a machine shop cut that down. We cut it about an inch or so short from the ceiling, so that when we went to add the top piece to the unit, all we had to do was screw and tighten those nuts, and it would raise up that fiberboard to make the connection and make it a nice press fit up there on the top for a lot of stability. You can see here, looking down the sides here, you can see the under supports. We have the stringers, I call them, underneath there to keep the shelf from bowing. We have one on each side there, so you have to work with a level. You have to make sure when you're putting things in that they are not going to, like this is coming off the back a little bit. There we go. To look like you've got to keep things level when you're doing the construction, or else you'll have the human eye is very good at detecting when things are off of level. So, having shown you a couple of the details, let me just give a few concluding thoughts. As total construction time is concerned, the unit took a Saturday and basically a Sunday to put together. The really time-consuming part of putting this shelf together is spinning the nuts on, because remember, as you add shelving units up, you need to spin nuts all the way down the threaded rod and then raise them up as you put your shelf on. You raise the nut up, you level it, then you have to put down a washer, then you have to spin another nut down, and believe me, it takes a long time to get a nut from 6 feet right on down to floor level. So the lowest ones take a long time to get positioned, and then of course the higher you go, the faster it is to spin the nuts down. So that was really the most time-consuming part of putting the shelf together. There were no problems with construction at all. The shelving units, once we got about 3 levels on outside, we were able to carry each of the sides in, put it in place, and then get our center section put on. We had no problems at all. Just measuring carefully, drilling your holes for sitting this board down, making sure you have your stringers on. It worked out great. If I was to contract to have a shelving unit like this, there's not even one on the market like this that I've ever seen, but I'm sure it would be well over $1,000, $1,500 for a comparable quality shelf. The material that we have in it is about $450, $500, and it's not gone anywhere. It's a very substantial unit, and I'm very pleased at the way it's worked out for us. So about 1/3 of the cost, if you could even find, and if you had to hire somebody to come in and do it, it would probably, over 2 days, it would be at least $1,000, $1,200 to put a unit like this together. So you can make it yourself. It's easy, it works great, you know it's solid, it's not going to fall apart at the seams or anything, and it's going to be there a long, long time. Make sure to check the links, watch the construction, check it out. We enjoyed doing it. Yeah, it's time consuming, but good things take time, and great units like this, well, they sort of pay themselves. They pay for themselves over the long haul, because everybody's come in and seen this unit. Everybody that has a floor to ceiling shelf, there's always a wow factor in it. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck on building your floor to ceiling shelving unit. Make sure to check the links once again, and comments are appreciated, and thumbs up are appreciated too. Thank you.